Greetings, citizens, and thanks for tuning in to Nindie Nation. I'm Jeff, and I missed you last week, citizens. It's great to be back. Today on episode 204, we're finally starting to get into a regular release schedule. So if you see something that you're planning to check out, let me know down in the comments or join us over on the Nindie Nation Discord. Be sure to check the YouTube community page for our 2023 Game of the Year contest. Click like, subscribe if you're a fan of Oxygen, and let's get right into it. These are the 11 new notable Nindies hitting the Nintendo Switch through Sunday, February 11th. The first Nindie of note releases on Tuesday, February 6th, as Mango Protocol and Iceberg Interactive follow up their well-received Psychotics series with Clem for $15.99. Using visuals similar to what we saw in Colossus Down or Agatha Knife, Clem is a puzzle-heavy adventure where you play as a child teddy bear thing with a zipper on its head. You wake up in a basement and hear a voice in the back of your head, which guides you to various puzzles scattered about a mansion. And the whole thing has a very ominous undertone that will be right up the alley of anyone who likes spooky things without the monsters or horror or gore. And since February 6th is Spooky Day for some reason, we also see Elisa Developer's Cut for $17.99. Also set in a spooky mansion, this revamped release of a highly reviewed game from Casper Crows is a straight-up homage to PlayStation 1-style survival horror. Just like Resident Evil or Alone in the Dark, as the name suggests, you play as some twisted form of Alice in Wonderland, and as you can see, the visuals here are much spookier than what we saw in Clem, with mechanized mannequins and all kinds of trippy imagery that looks even spookier thanks to the PS1 low-poly graphics. It goes a bit deeper in gameplay than its inspirations have, with some light RPG and equipment mechanics, and it comes to the eShop by way of Top Hat Studios, packing about 8 hours of retro survival horror. But now we move on to the game that I'm most excited for this week, because on Wednesday, February 7th, Hunter X Codename T releases with a discount for $11.99. The team at Orange Popcorn originally released 3000th Duel a few years ago, got into a spat with their publisher, and then self-published the original Hunter X in 2021, which I adored and played for over 20 hours. Both of these games, as well as the newest release, are just about as close as you can get to a knockoff Symphony of the Night, albeit with a lower budget. They definitely bring their own flavor of indie jank, but I loved 3000th Duel and really appreciated the shorter, more focused approach they took with Hunter X. The story is something about a purple moon summoning creatures or something, but I honestly never paid attention to it. I just liked the atmosphere and the grindy 2D hack-and-slash gameplay that kept on building and piling on new mechanics until the very last encounter. It's one of those Metroidvanias that you can totally grind out until you're ridiculously overpowered, and those are some of my favorites when it comes to a fun, mindless game to play over a week or so, usually with a show or podcast on in the background. I'll definitely be picking this one up and playing through it, so join us on Discord if you want some real-time updates. But as long as they continue to build on that foundation they laid so many years ago, I'm sure Hunter X Codename T will be a fun, janky little indie that does exactly what it sets out to do. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Hey, you know Breakout? That endlessly copied brick-breaking game that was originally developed by Steve Jobs? How about classic JRPGs like the original Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy? Well, Pixelbone Studios is throwing these two ideas together, like chocolate and peanut butter, in Dungeonoid 2 Awakening, and it's coming to the eShop by way of East Asia Soft for $8.99. Featuring much prettier artwork and an overall 16-bit flair compared to the more retro aesthetic of the first one, it's basically what I just described. Pick a character class, go through dungeon-like levels of brick-breaking action, earn power-ups, check out some shops along the way, and ultimately reach a boss. You probably already know if this one's a fit for you, but I'll say I had a solid time with the original, and the sequel looks much more polished. And just in case you're really on the fence, you can pick up the original Dungeonoid for just $2 until February 11th. But if you are gonna do that, I'd suggest just picking up the sequel instead. We kick off the week's Big Thursday drop with a studio that I appreciate because they always let me use this meme, as their name is
Hello there.
Games. You might know them from She Wants Me Dead, Kung Fury and its amazing soundtrack, or Avicii Invector, and it's the latter that they're tapping into with their latest title, Invector Rhythm Galaxy. Or, I guess if we want to be literal about it,
Invector Rhythm Galaxy!
Because, caps lock is like cruise control for awesome. As far as I can tell, this game is a throwback to Amplitude, one of the game's harmonics developed before filling our closets with plastic instruments. And I, for one, am here for it. It's somewhat interesting that they partnered with Warner Brothers Music for the track list, but as you can see, it's a pretty solid list. We've got some Paramore, some Royal Blood,
love that band,
Linkin Park, and a generally pretty wide range of music. If you like rhythm games and the soundtrack is speaking to you, you can check it out when it releases for $24.99. And I had a joke ready, but I've since decided not to tell you what I'm guessing Futu Studios stands for. But I will say the publisher Astrolab Games has a solid track record, so even though this game's description is very cryptic, we're still going to talk about Shanghai Summer. It's a narrative adventure with a beautiful modern anime art style that takes place around the turn of the millennium. You follow Baikwan through 12 days that can be replayed as you learn about different events which take place through quote-unquote anomalies. They give you this cool string theory board to play through as if it were a Quantum Dream title, and I think that's a really cool idea, as long as it's well translated, which it seems to be. I think Shanghai Summer just might be a story worth exploring, and if you're into it, it releases for $14.99. Cubite Interactive has this week's title that just screams to me as if the developers at Adunasoft pitched the game as,
Hey, you know what'd be really funny?
Because Mustache in Hell releases for $4.99. It's just an action-packed twin-stick shooter, which is cool. You play as Officer John Mustache and go to hell and shoot things. So there's that. And when it comes to the obligatory video game light reflection puzzle, there are two games that always come to my mind. The Talus Principle, if you want to bounce light around in a 3D space and break your brain at the same time, and God of Light, if you want to do so on a 2D plane. God of Light is a great little mobile game that I played several years ago, I think on my iPhone 4? And this week, we get God of Light Remastered for a respectable $4.99. Developed by Playmouse and published by Say Games, what you see here is what you get. And what you get is a really solid puzzle game with a fresh new coat of paint. Also, the soundtrack is by Uncle, who makes some killer lo-fi beats, but as of time of recording, I'm not sure if I can get away with using them, so just trust me that the soundtrack is probably great too. Wouldn't want anybody to hear an example of why the soundtrack is great now, would we? You know, whoever it is at Red Art Games that's responsible for finding the little indie games that need a publishing deal, they really have a knack for what they do, because this team has been on fire recently, and most of their games are available physically directly from their website. So if that's you and you're watching this, hey, good job. I think they're continuing that trend on Friday the 9th with the release of Jubilee, alongside a discount for $8.99 by the team at Final Boss Blues.
That's a great name.
It's a Celeste-like precision platformer. Your character just sets out to collect crystals across a wide-ranging slew of environments that are full of spikes and pits you'll avoid with a little double-jump twirly air dash. And I'll be damned if it doesn't look like a good time. If you're looking for a bit of story and context as you work through a precision platforming adventure, Jubilee should fit the bill nicely. But if you just want the smallest precision platforming challenges thrown at you in rapid succession, Rattle release this week looks like a solid take on the other side of this coin. Prisonella DX by 9 Ratones uses a similar art style as Jubilee, as your character runs through room after room to escape a prison. Hence the name. Each room should only take a couple seconds to beat, which makes it almost like a WarioWare of precision platformers. It's a cool idea for only $5 that should give fans of this genre a couple options to consider if you're looking for a fix this week. And last up this week is a title that made me say,
Oh, it's one of those games I always see advertised in mobile games.
but I think this one might be the original. The Nom is something, at least in concept, I'm sure all of you have seen at one point or another. You play as a scientist turned into a spider thing, and you move through rooms capturing bad guys to earn currency and gain new powers. I've always been intrigued by this game as it kinda looks like a fun little time waster, but I just hate controlling mobile games with a virtual thumbstick, so the Switch port actually kinda makes sense. And it looks like it's been given some care to look and feel like an actual console game versus what we usually see from publishers with games like this. Yes, it is a mobile game, and no, I'm probably not actually gonna buy it for $5, but I don't know. I could see Cubic Games tempting me with a sale sometime down the road. What do you think? Got some mobile gaming in you this week? Maybe something spooky, some precision platforming, or perhaps a story in Shanghai? I'm checking out Hunter X, Invector, and maybe Dungeonoid 2, but let me know what's going on your wish list down in the comments or over on our Discord. I know, Game of the Year video still isn't here, but gang, I've been busy, and I like to take my time to make these types of videos as good as they can be since they're some of the only evergreen content I make for the channel. That said, the post is now live on the YouTube community page alongside a list of games I played in 2023. So go take your best guess at what my top 10 will be, as the top 3 responses will win a game or eShop credit, so I'm trying to make it worth your while. Now that we're in February, a Nintendo Direct should be right around the corner, which means an indie world won't be far behind. But at least looking at next week, we've still got quite a bit to look forward to. There's Promenade, a gorgeous 2D puzzle platformer, Arzette, a hilarious take on the old Zelda CDI games that I'm super intrigued by, and Lord of Exile, an absolutely badass looking 8-bit action platformer I've been watching since it was unveiled last summer. But we'll have to find out if any of these are worth your time next week, citizens, because we're all done for today. Thanks so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and sharing Nindie Nation with others. Until next week, I'm Jeff. This has been Nindie Nation episode 204. And remember, no matter what type of game you're looking for, Nindie Nation will be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons safe.